Hi, so I chose to talk about race, gender, and sexual orientation as the three social identities that I'm going to give a historical perspective on. Um, so the first one that I kind of want to dive into, and this is not a broad overview of race, but just like a very specific topic that came up in the supplemental readings as well as the Kendi book. Historically, those in power wanted a reason to keep the other down because it benefited them to do so. Predominantly white cisgender males, otherwise coined as white supremacy. The belief for some time was that Africans were a primitive species, genetically inferior. This was an argument used to justify slavery. But in the biology and social construction of the race concept by Prince Brown Jr., he debunks this notion. Scientific research actually indicates that all humans originated in Africa and migrated to the rest of the world, according to a study done by Stringer and Andrews in 1988. He says, Prince Brown Jr. does, that no particular set of traits is limited to any one group or race in this article. However, laws against interracial marriage have limited sharing of genetic elasticity, which is physical traits that are exchanged when reproducing. We do know that genes have a dominant trait that may occur at a higher frequency in some groups than others. But as Kendi points out in How to Be an Anti-Racist, there are no biological differences among races because we do have all the same gene pool. It's just whether or not it's turned on and off during reproduction. And therefore, it is racist to place a hierarchy of value on life based on this idea. The next topic that I wanted to talk about specifically in regard to women is the gender gap. Historically, a woman's place was in the home, taking care of children and doing chores, but as many men were drafted in World War I and World War II, this left a shortage in the workforce at home in America, and so women took over these jobs that were historically male-dominated. Any job that you can think of, they did, from factory work to businesses, anything. And according to The Simple Truth About the Gender Pay Gap, the American Association of University Women, AAUW, has been advocating for pay equity since 1913. This was right before World War I. And President Obama signed the Lilly-led Better Fair Pay Act into law in January of 2009, which states that the 180-day statute of limitations for filing an equal pay lawsuit regarding pay discrimination resets with each new paycheck that's affected by that discriminatory action. The AAUW since then has been focusing on passing the Paycheck Fairness Act, which gives women additional equal pay protections. Within this, it incorporates a lot. There's like an education piece to educate the public on the gender pay gap, as well as requirements of all organizations, businesses to report their wages. And it doesn't require anyone to sign a document essentially stating that they won't divulge what their pay is, among other things. Of course, the Senate Republicans filibustered this legislation back in June of this year, with the idea because it would cripple hospitals, schools, and small businesses with legal burdens. However, a majority of voters are in favor of closing the gender wage gap. So my question is, who are they really protecting? And my answer to that is white supremacists benefit from the scales being unbalanced, right? And so, of course, the Senate predominantly, who are half of them are Republican, predominantly white men, represent white men, are not going to want something to go through legislation that protects, again, historically what we've defined as the other. The Institute for Women's Policy Research fact sheet discussed exactly what this gender wage gap looked like by occupation in 2014, as well as by race and ethnicity. It shows that women earn 5 cents on average less than men weekly, which equates to $719 for women and $871 for men. Racial inequities also cannot be ignored when it comes to this topic. They also did another collection of data for full-time broad occupational groups, and white women made $770 weekly, Black women made $611 weekly, Asian women made $841 weekly, while Hispanic women only made $548 weekly. Female-dominated fields have lower median income earnings than male-dominated jobs, and the lowest paid jobs being cashiers, maids, servers, personal care attendants, among other things. The full-time work that folks get and the pay that they get leaves them at the poverty level, and these poverty wages are common for Hispanic women specifically. Lastly, historically, queer couples have been criminalized by being forced to be in the closet or face jail time, have faced harassment and violence for their identity. Same-sex marriage wasn't legalized in all 50 states until 2015. While the Supreme Court ruled in 2020 that LGBT folks cannot be fired for their sexual orientation or gender identity under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it doesn't protect those who work at businesses with 15 or less workers, address bathrooms for trans individuals, and it doesn't ask the question if LGBT folks can be fired for religious reasons. Working with this community, therapists need to understand LGBT issues and create a positive relationship by being non-judgmental, interested, empathetic, and affirming to their experience, according to therapists' helpful and unhelpful situations with LGBT clients, an exploratory study. Research on how to best serve these clients is crucial because of the high risk factors of suicide, depression, experience of stigmatization, or victimization. Thank you.